call the meeting to order and thank everyone for attending this evening. Let the roll call reflect we are absent Gigi Goldner, she's under the weather this evening, and we do have our student representative here this evening. Flag salute.
Hang on.
I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Review of the agenda. I'm going to pull the minutes. I want to go through them one more time. I was absent for one. I think Ed, you were absent for one. And we'll add those to next meeting's agenda.
Yep, sounds good.
Anything else, anything to add or subtract?
Yeah, I want to move the update of the SHS fencing from superintendent's report, move it to number 4 so that we can include Charlie in that discussion.
Number 4 under business.
Yeah.
That's where it's at now in our revised,
Oh, yeah, so,
in our revised one it is.
okay. And then just remove community school district use sharing from the superintendent's report. That's part of this fence discussion.
I think we have,
You were a different thing than you were.
community school use sharing agreements is on the back.
And then I was not aware that Paul was going to be here. He's gone next Monday, and so he will provide an update right after Mike.
Okay.
So we just add him in there for a program update.
And it is in here.
It's in here. We have pretty updated.
So Kayla and I haven't spoken since 2005, so it must have happened since then.
All right, good. We got, so other than on the back page subtracting community school district use sharing agreements for June.
And then just a point of notice, I sought to get 5 of these made today for board members. This just basically gives you a layout of things in the project. So we have 2, and I've given one to Ed and one to Byron, who wanted one. Does anybody else want one? I think it's helpful.
That's the timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
I'll give, if you just want to email me the PDF, that's fine too.
it's so small, you can't see it.
I'll
I
let
tried
you-
to do it on
I'll let you know
11.
when you're off the timeline.
It's,
Then get me a copy. You can throw it,
Okay.
I'll stop by the district office.
Okay, we'll do that.
If there are no other changes, go to the audience. Doesn't look like anybody is wanting to address the board. Welcome this evening. And I think Heather's on the agenda. That being the case, with the exception of the minutes, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as included into our packet.
So moved.
Motion?
I'll second, but just I have a question. Is it appropriate to ask on the Myron, whether, you know, that title there is, whether it's termination or resident, you know, or leave of absence, cancellation? Just, I'd kind of like to know when we do that, which category it falls under.
Should be resignation.
And that's,
Yeah,
I'd kind of like that in the future on that
Yeah, I
report.
agree.
that's an easy one. Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yep.
A motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Next up is the financial report.
Good evening, directors. All right. Okay, open up my packet here. All right, so financials for October. Got ourselves back on track and getting things to you at the appropriate time. So we'll look at our November enrollment count, continue to see positive things as far as that is concerned. Our enrollment continues to exceed budget by almost 50, FTE 50.31 in the traditional format, and then about 0.5 in the ALE. So very close as far as the ALE, but significantly over budget in our traditional brick and mortar schools. We'll see that adjustment to our apportionment starting in January. So in January, again, they will pay us the amount that they shorted us actual versus budget for September, October, November, and December. So you'll have 4 months of catch-up, basically, and then January, the month of delivery, they will give you your portion at the new amount. So it's what we call our go-live month, is that you will change from budgeted enrollment to actual enrollment, and then you'll be paid on your actual enrollment there every month thereafter for the remainder of the fiscal year. So we should get a significant bump in our overall apportionment of probably about $600,000-ish approximately for those additional 50 students. Which again, so we'll see a portion of that in January and then a larger portion that's sliced each month thereafter for the remainder of the fiscal year. Some graphic representations, excuse me, of the data. As we've looked at before, our traditional enrollment, our AAFTE, looking at 1946, so we're getting very close to that 2000 number. And you can see the data has migrated a lot, but as we've talked about many times, back in 09, 10, and we had a significant downslide for multiple years. We've started to claw our way back up. Then obviously we had COVID, which was a huge interruption in the 2021 year, and then now 21, 22, and 22, 23. So we've rebounded nicely and have seen growth, which Dan and I were recently presented some data from the ESD, where they basically did a survey of all the districts within the ESD as far as their enrollment is concerned, and which districts have lost enrollment, which districts have gained enrollment. A lot of districts have lost significant amounts of enrollment, and it appears that the handful of districts that have grown have tended to be the more rural districts that are away from the urban core, that are a little bit more rural. Whether that's just, again, a kind of a reflection in the housing market as people bought houses similar to they did here, moving further out away from the urban core. But as you look at it, pretty much just a handful of districts showed growth, ours being one of them. And by and large, almost all of them that did show growth were out in more rural areas. Traditional versus budget estimate, the next one. As you can see, continuing to tick upward month over month, September, October, November. That's the kind of the way that we like that line to look in an upward manner. For ALE, the next one, likewise, continuing to tick upward. We were below the first 2 months, but then now we have crossed that plateau in the third month, the month of November, and we are above budget. So again, for the year, just slightly above. And Russ, I changed the scale a little bit, so it's a little more
It's a little easier.
a little easier to read. So I started as 40 as our little number now. So, tax assessment report. Ending in October. Again, October is when you get your, the vast majority of your property taxes are due October 31st. However, you do get some that kind of slop over to the first week in November and so forth. But as of the end of October, $346,097 was still remaining as receivables. That's for calendar years 2022 back as far as 1996. In our bond fund, which is inactive, but $4,600, and our capital projects fund, about $110,319 as of the end of October. Then our budget status reports is the end of October. General fund, Fund 10, just under $2.9 million, $2,899,301. Fund 20, our capital projects fund, $2,519,915. Fund 30, our debt service fund, page $127,405 now. Just a note, we will have our LGO payments will be coming out on December the 1st. I made the transfers today. This is the first year we will now have 2 separate LGO payments. We have what I'm calling LGO 1, which was for the Sultan Middle School roof remediation, which we have been paying on for several years. But we will also have the first payment on the LGO that was taken out for the replacement of the turf and the 3 new portables. So this will be the first payment on that LGO, and then probably the fourth or so payment on the other one. But we did the transfers this morning. General fund will continue to be making the debt service payment of about $48,000 and some change, which is on LGO 1, which is the middle school roof. LGO 2, which is the portables and the turf, that is going to be paid by capital projects fund. So capital projects fund will pay that. That's a split, basically a 60-40 split. About 60% of that is going to be related to impact fees, which is the cost of the 3 portables, and the other 40% is related to the turf. So it's about a 60-40 split. The 40% for the turf will be pledged against future tax collections because it was a named issue in Prop 2. So, but that's how that will be done. So we did those as 2 separate transfers because the proceeds were coming out of 2 separate funds, but both of those will be redeemed out of debt service fund later this week. Okay.
What were the year payout on that? Was that a 3, 4, 6?
10, those are 10.
Oh, 10.
Yeah, 10s on both, yeah. You have a 5-year and then a 5-year reset on the interest rate on both of those, but they're 10, if they go full term, yeah, they would be 10-year. There are no prepayment penalty, we can pay sooner, but they are 10-year notes, the way that they're written right now. Okay, so continuing on, Fund 40, Associated Student Body, $195,146, and again, that is combined, our two elementaries, middle and high combined. And then Transportation Vehicle Fund, $194,223 in that fund at this time. The exceptions reports, where we look at salaries and benefits, materials, supplies, and operating costs, and then all areas together. The first one's salaries and benefits, which is the Objects 2000s through 4,999. You can see essentially about half of them are below the proportionate share, which again, green indicates that they're at proportionate share or doing better under proportionate share. Yellow would mean they're anywhere from just slightly above to 10% above, and red would be greater than 10%. So we only have one, the pilot program, special program, state. Again, it's again, those tend to be timing issues at the beginning of the year. They're not hugely significant as far as the dollars are concerned. The percentages are a little deceptive as far as that's concerned. But overall, 0.2% below. So we're pretty close, but still below 0.2% for salaries and benefits. Second graph, materials, supplies, and operating costs, 5,000s through the 9,999s. Again, a couple of distortions here. The vast majority of these are below, so you can see them in green. We have just one in yellow, and we have a couple in red. The ones in red, we can look at vocational, as far as that, some startup costs and some additional expenditure capacity there. Pupil transportation, I know that Charlie's had to make some adjustments to, we talked about more kids. That means more transportation, that means more routes, more cost there, so that's reflective in that.
And we have enough budget capacity in that to.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Those are small overall accounts anyway,
Um,
except for the transportation.
Transportation is the only one that's bigger.
Yeah,
I mean,
transportation, as far as pupil
a red
transportation.
box further up that scale is more.
Yes, yeah.
But again, you see here, this is for material, supplies, and operating costs. So as far as transportation, you're looking at, that's your cost of fuel. That's your diesel cost right there that is really hitting you hard as far as that's concerned right now. And then the last one is all areas. When we combine material, supplies, operating costs, salaries and benefits, and the whole pie altogether, we are 0.7% below, if all areas are concerned. And again, some of the same comments that were shared on the prior two slides are similar and applicable to this as well. Continuing on fund balance history, looking at where we're at, where we are going. At this point, I've modified this slightly to try to make it a little bit more meaningful, but 22-23, you can see where we're at September, October. And then the next column, it says the dollar change from the 4-year average. So in September, we were $345,000 below, but in October, we're now 106 above. The prior year, the new one is added from highest prior year. So in green, you can see for the given month, what was the highest prior year. So in the month of September, it was in 1920, was our highest September. In October, it was 1819, okay? And then you can see what is the dollar difference from that month that was the highest in the prior years. So October, like in the case of October this year versus October of 1819, it's a significant difference, about $1.2 million difference. In September was about $976,000 difference. So I'll continue to identify in green which year had which month that was the highest, and then say where are we now versus where were we at the highest month at that point in the past. And then just a graphic representation of that follows. And then just kind of looking at where we're at right now. Again, we budgeted for 22-23, 4.3%, which would be the budgeted amount. And again, I don't have the projections yet. I will work on those. Typically, I would have those for you maybe December, but most likely January. I would fill out through the end of August and then kind of give you a projection of where we're going to be at the end of August. So and that is my report.
How are we sitting on our class sizes K-3 with the growth 50 students over our expectations?
They're balanced across the system. I mean, you can go back to the one graph that shows you where you are in the bands. You can kind of get a picture of that, but, Heather can talk about what she sees in Gold Bar, but we're within those right now.
Okay.
And part of it's the way they calculate it, but it's not something we want to miss for a whole lot of reasons.
Right.
Yeah, it's a significant. It would be a significant financial hit not to keep that 17-1. But that's an excellent question, Russ.
And I think that the other part of it is we want to have those classes at that size.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the commitment, so. We should be in good shape, but there will be another reading of it in April, Dan, is that when it happens?
Mm-hmm.
They'll take another shot at it, and so we'll have to see. I mean, we have, just in this school alone, we have a couple of classes around 110. I've never had that.
Yeah, when we look at kindergarten, kindergarten did not change for the prior month. It was flat from the month before, at 175 kindergartners. But again, in those, it looks like we're flat at kindergarten, we were down 1 in first grade, up 1 in second grade, and up 2 in third grade, and flat in fourth.
It's just hard from that
Month
to
over
tell
month.
how many are in.
How many, you have to know how many sections, yeah, you need to know how many sections and which teachers are included, because it's not only the classroom teachers, but you get some credit for the specialists that provide the release time for planning periods for those teachers as well, that figure into the calculation.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, it looks like we have, do we have anybody here for an association report? I don't think we do.
Yes,
Oh, I'm gonna remember this one of these months, please.
Good evening, everyone. So, really all that is currently going on at the high school, we have winter sports are starting, we have our first basketball games this week, I believe. And the musical just began, rehearsals. That's about all that's going on right now?
Thursday night, I think, is the first home game for basketball.
Yes, yeah.
Is
Wrestling
when-
starts.
Thursday night?
Oh, wrestling starts as well, okay. I did not know that one, but thank you.
All right, then next up is Mike.
Good evening, directors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and present. I chose to talk about Title I and LAP this evening. And because it is probably one of the bigger programs we do, so I gave you some facts that came from directly from our teachers. And so the cover sheet was just my explanation, but the other pieces are really, these programs, both Title I and LAP, are in place, and we receive grants to pay for most of these things. So, so they're in place to work with students who are deficit skills, whether it's coming in as a kindergartner or as a result of possibly moving in or moving through our system, and they're not able to get, they're not going as fast as the rest of the kind of the normal levels. We do this through benchmark testing. We started in September, and we do a benchmark in September. We do benchmarks in January, and we do them at the end of the year. So we are able to move students in and out of these programs. So they're really meant to be able to reach those students and provide those skills that they may be struggling with. And so that's kind of the overall essence of them. What I wanted to bring to your attention is the fact that here at Sultan, we have 120 students in program. And I'll talk about the program model in just a moment, but, and then so those 120 are being served, but we have 210 that qualify for assistance. So we're not reaching our entire group that needs to be helped. And so that's something that we struggle with as a department and as a school district. That's something that is very, very hard for anyone that works with kids. I mean, to see that there's still kids in classrooms that still need assistance, and we don't have the model doesn't allow us to do that. So almost the entire budget that we get from the state goes for salaries. So we have 2 full-time teachers, 1 in each building, and then we have paraprofessionals that actually fill out the rest of the programs. So I'm not all about doom and gloom. It's just that is the nature of part of it is we have more because of pandemic related. The kids that didn't get that solid, 6 hours of education for years, a year and a half about. And so we have to think about that. We have to think about all of those things. So here in this building, the first, second, and third are partially served. They're not serving kindergarten, and that's typical. We don't usually start with kindergarten. We give them some the fall to get kind of started, and we will start services in January for kindergarten typically. but half of our third graders, fourth graders, and fifth graders are not getting service. We just recently, when I got done with final budgets, I actually afforded more paraprofessionals in both schools. So we're actually able to meet. And so the strength of the program is that we can track their progress and their exiting out of these programs. But we have to have the people to do it. And so I just want to let you know that we're trying everything we can to work through the pieces to get this. With the two paraeducators that are here, we'll be able to serve 30 more kids. So the kids are served in groups of 3. The model that's the intervention. So they're still getting in-classroom help from their classroom teacher. They come out, they're pulled out, and they go to, they call it reading club, try to make it a positive thing. Many kids, Heather, I know lots of the kids at Gold Bar love going to reading club because they actually know that they're making progress. It's an affect part of it, of the education also. And I will say that I did give you the voice of the teacher when I wrote these things. Ideally, to be able to serve more, probably in this building with a student population over 600, we probably need 2 full-time educators, and then the program support, which would be all the paraeducators to support that. And that would be able to serve everyone that's here. Gold Bar, the numbers look very similar, just a smaller population. There are 161 students in grades 1 through 5, 1 or more levels below the benchmark. And those would be where we would target. They serve 93 students in their pullout, and then kindergarten and Gold Bar is push-in services with the paraeducators for the fall. They also pick up some 5th graders. So they have 68 students that are below standard not being served in grades 1 through 5. So in the spring, in January, when kindergarten at Gold Bar has already done their benchmarking, they actually have they'll just decide groups here in December, and then they'll be able to start right after the winter break. And so we'll pick up 18. How many kindergartners do you have total?
I want to say 94, and we're only picking up 18 because that's all we have capacity.
Yes, so the capacity, even with the 1 paraeducator that we added out at Gold Bar. So it's not a perfect plan, it's not a perfect way to do that. My job is to let you know what's happening in these programs and not necessarily sugarcoat it, and I'm not sugarcoating anything, I'm just giving you the facts. We do the benchmark assessment, so I'm gonna go into design and content. So we use benchmark assessment systems from Fontes and Pinnell, which is what we use in the elementary classrooms as a reading program. We use a program called Level Literacy Intervention, and it's a Fontes and Pinnell product also. And then we actually have trained all of our teachers in the last 3 years. I think we've had everyone in a summer institute class looking at how to best use these materials and best know what needs to be done with kids that present at this level and how they can move forward. So so I know that was kind of not a great positive thing. I think that we probably need to work to figure out how we meet the needs of everyone that is where it's needed. And so I think that's something that you guys can talk about and figure out, but grants won't fully fund the need. And so we're using everything we can possibly use. So I combine both the Learning Assistance Program money from the state and the federal Title I funds, and I blend them, and we have school-wide, which means that our teachers and our paras can touch every student in the entire school. And we do that so we don't have to do ranked list. If somebody comes up, they move in, we see something, a student moves in, we can actually provide services with space allowed. So we have dedicated staff in all of these programs. This is not they work their entire day plus. And I have teachers that you know, I meet with them monthly, and they, you know, well, I'm picking this one up, and it's the little time between, you know, like, the mom drops them off 10 minutes early, and I see them before class. So, I mean, we have these dedicated professionals that are doing this. That's usually the classroom teacher, or the teacher. I do wanna give you a positive, and I didn't include this in your packet, but I'll get it to you because it came in late. And this is a 6-year-old, and I'll pass the picture around in just a moment. Cute little 6-year-old Spider-Man showed up to my classroom early the other morning, all on his own, to get help with his take-home practice. He doesn't get any help support at home, and I let him know if he wanted to come in during breakfast, I'd help him. Made me so happy when he walked in through my door. Kids want to learn. And she put a heart and then a hashtag, love my job. So I'm just gonna pass this around because I want to leave you with a positive. So, and I'll get that out to you. So, questions that you may have?
How much of this delinquency and learning abilities language related?
So are you talking about the English language learning program or
Well, I'm
just?
just talking about kids that we have that are, their native language is not English. And
So-
of those 210 people that are behind, how much of that is related to non-English speaking?
Well, we have an English language learning program
Right.
that actually serves those. And we do have sometimes they have dual assistance intervention, so they'll have an English language learning piece, and they'll also have the level literacy to be able to work with them. So I don't have a number for you, so that's not, I mean, I could certainly find that out. But so there are quite a few that, of course, and what I think Dr. Douglas and I talk about is the fact that we have kids that is them not knowing the English language preventing them from learning, or do they have a learning disability? So we struggle with that as professionals to make sure that we're making the right call in the right place.
Yeah, I just didn't know in this 210 figure, we're
Yes.
serving 120,
Yes.
but how many of those are having struggle because they're non-native language?
Well, we have
So-
200 and almost 60 English language learners
In
identified.
addition to this?
That's what's in that program. So I'm telling you the total number in the English language learning program, and there are doubles in both programs, because that's what we have to do.
How are we choosing which students are getting the services and which aren't getting the services?
So once the benchmark assessment systems, Heather, do you want to speak? Do you have?
Sure, at our school, we do the benchmark assessment system, there's thresholds at every grade level in terms of what reading level they should be at according to this time of year, and that changes, of course, throughout the year. So then we rank order the students based on their current reading level and kind of prioritize that benchmark assessment, but then we also offset it against, iReady reading diagnostic scores if we have those, and teacher feedback, as well as whether or not the student qualifies for an IEP. Because if they qualify for reading services through an IEP, we wouldn't be serving them in title. So we do a rank order, and then the schedule, the parameter that our school day allows us to be able to serve without them missing other services and still being able to get their core instruction and a double dose in the classroom is how we make those determinations. I don't have an exact number for you, Ed, but I can tell you that, we serve about those 94 students. We have about 66 who qualify for EL services, and I was just going through today and kind of marking who's in which program and whatnot. And I would say probably, if I had to guess off the cuff, about 75% of the students that qualify for EL services might also qualify for the title program for reading. It depends. We have several students who do qualify for EL services who don't qualify for reading based on those benchmark assessment scores.
So when you rank them, is it then we try to address the needs of the most needy to the least?
Yes,
Yes.
and every once in a while, like right now, we're in this little window where we're about to serve kindergarten, right? Kindergarten's not fully in program. And so we have some students that are right on the cusp of being at where they need to be. So we're prioritizing those students right now, hoping that that little booster of some extra services and supports will actually get them closer to where they need to be at grade level before we then start pulling the kids in January that are significantly below grade level or to, kindergarten is kind of full grade levels, but.
So I think, so one of the things that happens at Gold Bar specifically, and I'll talk about that since Heather's here, is we have the ability to be able to make those changes through, in the fall, because we're not, our paras actually push into the classrooms to help with the, kind of the basics of, getting started with kindergarten. We know that is such a very powerful year, but as the paras they're always needed, I don't wanna say that, but as they are needed less, they then have the ability to actually pick up, maybe can pick up a group of 3, and we look at just under the bubble kids, and in addition to what we've already decided as our highest priority. So we're trying to work both ends of the spectrum, because we feel like if these bubble kids get right over that bubble, then they can have that confidence to continue working with the classroom-based interventions also.
I'm not a teacher, but I'm curious what, that's very obvious. Obviously, with the more demanding learners, 3 makes sense. If they're right on that bubble, is it possible to get 4 or 5 in that group?
4 is, the model is built for 3, and the problem is it's a 35-minute lesson. And if you wanna see kids and adults that work super hard in a 35-minute session.
That's it.
And the organization that all these paras and teachers have to have just to be able to do that. So you have to have, they transition in that 35 minutes 4 to 5 times. So you see, they come in, they start reading, and they're reading quietly to themselves, they're reading the book that the teacher has assigned them to read. And then they do a quick little review of that, then they move right on to the next task. They use word work, they have all of these pieces. So when you can only listen to 3 kids at a time.
Don't tell them I recommended
No,
5.
no, I'm just saying,
It's on tape.
it is.
I am not recommending that. I didn't understand how it worked.
Yeah, it is very, very detailed, and that's how we get the results though. And so by keeping it at the number 3, they're able to move those kids faster. If they add, and it's all done based on, I'm sure, an algorithm down in with Gayan and Gaysu and Irene, that's Fontes and Pinnell. It's their last names, they designed this. So they have a system, and it's built on that. And it
The
works.
other tricky thing, not to interrupt,
Yeah.
but sorry, is keeping the students within the same level group. And so, an A through D reader is typically supposed to be a kindergarten reader, and we have 3rd and 4th, and even 5th grade students who are reading at an A level, and so then trying to keep them in a group and also still serving them at that time that's been allotted for that grade level is a bit of a, it's
I
like
get it.
playing Sudoku. It's a real challenge, but.
How are we engaging the parents of the students? Because it seems to me like with reading, most adults would have the ability to help when they're home.
Nightly. So,
Right, yes.
so it's a take-home program that the student actually has, they bring in their little satchel that has the book in it, there may be possibly a worksheet or something that they worked on the night before, or if it's just a reading book, and then they bring that in. The teacher, when the kids are practicing reading, she's changing that out, putting the next one in, and then they take it back home. They also incentivize that, so bringing it back is worth their, they get so many stamps, and then they get a prize, and, so that type of thing. So
Do we see that there's good parental engagement with their students as a whole, or?
As a whole, I'd say yes. I think that there's always more, we're always looking for more ways to incorporate those parent things. That's one of the topics we talk about every month in not only my state Title I lab meetings, but also when we get together with the teachers. this is why I chose one topic today. Yeah, I knew we were going to.
And I said I wouldn't talk very much, I'm blowing it. Well, I think we'll have discussions on how we can address the students that are having their needs.
You know, I told Dan earlier, I said, this isn't a fun one to talk about, but it's a reality.
We need to
So-
know.
Yep, absolutely, and this has been going on for years. We've had more need, you know, and especially, I think right now we're seeing those multiple years where kids didn't engage with that high-quality teaching, a learning experience. And so that's what we're trying to do, close that gap.
Well, we're starting discussion on a way to address kids coming to school in the beginning and being more prepared. And
Yes.
now we need to address the ones that we have already that didn't start.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Douglas, Dr. Davis.
Good evening, directors.
Good evening.
I'm not sure that my topic is any lighter, so,
Great.
yeah, nothing
Do
but
you have any
encouragement.
happy pictures that are also kind of sad?
No, I don't have any of those.
Okay.
But so I'm talking tonight a little bit about our student support advocates. This is a title that we've seen on a couple different positions. In my last district, we called them family community coordinators, and I thought that was a little bit better title for what our folks do. So this is a grant-funded program that we've had, I think it's going on 4 years now, where we initially started off with a SSA at the high school, and that was Bethany Ponell. And so she served the high school and the middle school at that time. And over the last couple of years, we've written a grant. So last year, we wrote a grant to get an additional SSA, and that person is Mariana Medina. And she covers the elementary schools and does 1 day a week at the middle school, and Bethany does the rest of the time at the middle school. So this year, or it was back in April, I think we wrote the grant again, another grant for a third SSA, and we were able to secure that grant. But unfortunately, we're not able to hire anyone for that position until about 3 weeks ago. And so we hired internally Elizabeth Emmons for that position. So Elizabeth will now serve the middle school, Bethany will be at the high school, and then Mariana will do the 2 elementary schools. The role of the SSA, like I said, is more of the family community coordinator. They connect families to services. So, and this is the time of year where there's a lot of giving, a lot of outpouring, and a lot of time where our SSAs are reaching out to the different agencies for support for our families. And this goes on all year long, but this is the year where they gather more support. So they're working with VOA as an example. They work with Cocoon House, CMAR, Cascade Church, a number of different organizations in order to bring in a variety of things. Operation School Bell is another one where they reach out and get clothing for students, and that can include, you know, from just the clothing itself to shoes to you name it, they're able to get that. One of the programs that Mariana has worked on for the last year, going on about 1.5 years now, is working with Miracle Food Network. It's a group out of Whatcom County that brings in food to our families in Gold Bar. So it started off with around 15 families, and now it's up to about 100 families. And that's bringing in, looking at the Maslow need hierarchy of needs. That's the first need, is providing food for our families. Another thing that Mariana does down at Gold Bar, she started to partner with Heather. Heather has an after-school reading program and tutoring for students 2 days a week. So during that time, she has community members, particularly from the Hispanic community, come in, and that's an opportunity for her to meet with those families, talk a little bit about our system, what does the school system look like, what is Becca, was one of the discussions she had the last time. She's bringing our SRO in, Officer Lynch, and she's bringing in a counselor from Consejo in the next meeting, which is December 10th. And so it gives a chance for our bilingual families, or sometimes our families that don't speak English, an opportunity to hear what's going on in our schools in their home language. She has also reached out to, it's Everett Community College, to try and get an instructor to come in and teach English to some of our parents. So that's in the works right now.
I thought we had that several years ago. Did we have a parent group that we had somebody brought in? Maybe, I mean, this has been like 10, 15 years ago. Do you know of any program we?
Not that I recall. Unless, can you give me a little more?
Let me think on it.
Okay.
So that's a program she's working on. It's one we're not able to use, transitional bilingual dollars for, unfortunately. So we can't use state funds for it, so it's grant funded or just they're brought in on their own, so it's kinda tricky that way, but.
It's also hard for that 75% of those kids in that group to go home and their parents don't speak English to
Correct.
help them learn to read.
Right,
And they just, they basically help them navigate roadblocks that are holding them back from success.
right.
I would be troubled if I had to teach a kid how to read first grade Spanish.
Right.
It would be a problem.
Right. So that just gives you a basic overall kind of job that the SSAs do. I mean, Bethany does a lot of work at the high school, helping students that either they run away or they have drug addiction and try and connect that student to the different resources, helping families address some of their, how to support their teen, how to get them back together to get some of the reconciliation services and mediate between family and the student themselves. Just after we met last time, and I gave you the story about the one student, we had a student that was found on our campus sleeping by the library at the high school. So fortunately, that situation worked out well for the student, but that was an example where Bethany stepped in and started resources and communication and so on.
You gotta be followed up with somebody with really happy news tonight, so.
Well, the happiness is we are making a difference in a number of families that we're connecting with. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Fifth grade camp, and it looks like Heather, you're subbing in for both schools this evening.
I move we adopt.
Yeah. You can give us a short ask, because this is gonna be pretty easy for you.
Well, it's
But you have a story to tell.
Actually, a short ask and a good tell, I
Yes.
suppose. So, we haven't been able to go to fifth grade camp the last few years, thanks COVID, but the camp is up and running again, so we initially came here tonight, or we're going to come here tonight to ask for permission again for our overnight stay for fifth grade camp, and so that's what we were
Are they
hoping.
100% back? I mean, the whole camp is back together now, operating?
Yeah, it's fully
All
operating
facets,
again.
I should say,
Day-
all facets of the camp.
Yes,
are-
yeah, the camp is fully up and operational again. We were able to keep the dates that we've historically had preserved for us. It's time though for us to pay our deposit to secure those dates. Last June, I went to a admin conference, PD conference over in Spokane, and while I was there, I was listening to somebody speak about outdoor schools of Washington, and they were talking about trying to get funding for all fifth and sixth grade students in Washington State to be able to participate in some form of outdoor education, most especially in light of COVID and some of the impacts. And while I was there, they were talking about it, and I thought I'd look into it, and it said, do you want help with transportation costs or something, click here and apply. And I thought, well, I'll apply, and I'll apply for Sultan Elementary as well while I'm at it. And knowing we were coming to this board meeting today, I thought I'd check in on that status of that application and see, how's it going? The website says, well, our funding's all been allocated, you can get on a waiting list. And I'm like, well, bummer, we don't even, it would have been nice to get those transportation costs offset. And later on that day, I got 2 emails, one for Gold Bar and one for Sultan, saying that they fully funded outdoor education camp for both of our schools, which was great, because we were also going to tell you that the cost of camp has increased, and we would have had to raise quite a bit more per student, plus charge for the chaperones who would be attending as both high school chaperones and adult chaperones. But due to the grants for both schools, we won't have to fundraise this year for students, and there should actually be enough to help offset the transportation costs, as well as any stipends that might have been allocated for teachers
to be a part of this, and any other costs associated that might be barriers for students attending camp. So if a student can't come because they don't have a sleeping bag, we can get reimbursed for that. The catch is that it's funded out on a reimbursement basis, so we'll need the district to front those costs up front, and then after we attend in May, then we'll be fully reimbursed through SPI for that. So there's a little bit of good news.
That's great
behind
news.
Guam and Guam over there.
Yeah, and they even had pictures.
Yeah, the catch is that we do have to send in pictures and stories and
Yeah,
whatnot.
that's great.
There is the possibility that this grant will be available to us again next year. They do prioritize schools that are in rural locations and have a high percentage of high poverty lap.
Save some needy pictures to
Yeah.
send to them for the.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited
Thank
about
you.
that. Yeah, so we got 22,500 for Gold Bar Elementary and 46,800 and change for Sultan Elementary, so that should be a total of about $69,000. The quotes that, or the original quotes that came in for camp were about 9,500 and change in just tuition, or attendance costs alone for Gold Bar, and about 15,000 for Sultan. So it would have been, it's supposed to cost us about $25,000. This is what we would have had to fundraise for students to attend, and we'll be getting in about 69,000. So like I say, that should help offset the cost of diesel fuel to get us there and back, and some of those teacher stipends.
Great job.
So,
Great
so
job.
with your blessing, then we'll move forward with paying that deposit and making those plans.
Let's see how long this takes. Do I have a motion to approve the fifth? I have a first motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Thank you.
opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. And really, that's excellent work. All right. Approval of Sultan Middle School roof repair and LGO. Charlie?
Incidentally, I always take the luggage there and back because there's really good gizzards in Granite Falls.
Wow. I was the only one that knew that.
So, when we talked last about roof costs, we had a guesstimate, now we have
Bids.
a bid price.
What roof are we talking about here?
The finishing the middle school,
What roof?
everything that hasn't been done. So the dome of the commons, the dome of the gym, all of over the auxiliary gym, all of science, Moon's building, and the eightplex.
What's the eightplex? That's on the end?
That's the one by the parking lot.
Yeah,
Okay, you're supposed to know the names of all these things.
that's, well, I'm just trying to get at that all. So what are we doing to the gym? That's that
The
fabric
gym
thing.
and the commons are both getting the liquid
New
coating.
The what?
It's a liquid coating.
So they're just coating over the top of that fabric that's on there?
Yeah, they they prep it, but yeah. As long as the infrared comes out, okay.
And when will we
Which-
know that?
After it's done raining.
June?
Yeah, so they do the infrared to make sure there's no moisture with, below the current, surface.
When are they gonna tear into this?
Probably maybe a few weeks before school's out.
It's kind of the wrong time of the year to be roofing.
That's the dry time. If, like, when we go to do Gold Bar, it'll be a little bit different because that's a comp roof, and so you
Yeah.
can do that on the fly.
Okay.
So when you're done with this, all the roofs on the middle school will be
Will be done.
fixed?
And
All
part of
of-
it has a 50-year?
On everything except for the liquid.
Right, and that's 10?
So we have an option for more. There's two numbers within that. I don't know if it's both in that. in that packet.
Yeah, there was.
Two quotes, one was the new Clean Buildings Act. So it's a thicker, saves energy, whatever, but we're not required to do that yet. That doesn't happen until 24.
Oh, so we don't have to make the call on how long the warranty ability of the roof is yet?
Correct.
Okay.
So we could go with the lesser.
This also, there's some spots that have some severe fascia under, you know, you can see.
Not just fascia, there's some, like this building, which we're not gonna do yet, but
Some rotting wood.
there's some shiplap or tongue and groove that has rotted through because of some holes in the hypalon. And so that'll all get replaced, the fascias, downspouts, scuppers.
Right.
Oh, and in addition, the parapet walls, which are the hide the roof walls on the front of the school, will have that blue
Right.
metal on it to.
Looks better.
Yeah, and it'll prolong the life of those walls.
Questions? And also for a motion to approve the Sultan Middle School roof repair and LGO.
Did you have a question? I thought you were asking questions, sorry.
Oh, no.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
A motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm waiting for you to say no sometime and see what you turn down. All right.
We're waiting to ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something I'm gonna be like, no.
No, I don't like that. Increasing the school day by more hours.
I already have, I got musical and then I got cheer and then I got this.
Yeah, your days are full.
Yeah.
Next up, Charlie, you got portable bathroom update.
Yeah, so did some more digging on some stuff. I haven't gotten any prices on what the buildings would cost because we'd have to put it out to bid to get actual prices. I did get some numbers on some things that were used I could find out there. Also got some data on how many students versus bathrooms there are on this campus versus
I saw
Gold
that.
Bar. And I found that to be a good little tidbit.
Well, it's interesting, if I understand this right, Sultan Elementary has, it looks like a total of 18 bathrooms, 627 students. Is
So-
that more
They have-
bathrooms per
They
student?
have less students per bathroom here.
That's what I thought, like
Correct.
22 or something?
But they have the distance that they have to walk to the facilities as far as the portables are concerned is greater. Gold Bar is just what better built campus is.
Right. Was newer.
It's also newer,
Not to build schools like this.
yeah. So just more information, and we haven't gone any further with anything as far as putting out
The
the
part
bid.
that I don't, maybe it was in here, just the sewer hookup's 56,000,
Yeah, it
just
was,
for the sewer.
no, that's just the permitting of the sewer, that's not hooking it up.
Well, that's not very promising.
No,
So that's the permitting for portables or for permanent?
for permanent sewer.
Okay, all right. So you're working on that side of it. These portable ones, they don't hook up to sewer, or do you?
No.
No,
Okay, that's what I thought.
and there's various different services based on, you know, even if we got a quote, I think you'd talk to these people, it would take a few months to figure out if we're gonna be getting it serviced once a week, twice a week, depending on how many students are actually using it.
Is that fee that they charge, is that all city fees for the permitting?
Yeah.
It's very similar to the cost of the permit for the transportation co-op building, very similar. Wasn't it almost identical?
So you'll have more information for us and,
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted me to keep digging at it, I didn't know if the tidbit on there, on the students per bathroom swayed us towards not pursuing it.
well, I think we need to probably talk to Audrey some more. It's substantially, it's like
You could put it out to bid, that's probably the way you'll get the exact number, and then if it doesn't pencil out or it doesn't make sense, you can reject all bids.
Do we need permitting to move bathrooms?
To move.
Well, let's assume that this campus, it has enough bathrooms that are in the wrong spots. And so would we need permits if we kept the same number of bathrooms, but they moved to different spots in our buildings?
Probably, because you
And
have
would
to
they
have
be
a different
55,
hookup.
right, would it be as much? Because we're not asking for more capacity, we're asking for,
Remodel.
right, well, and you need a permit in Sultan to put a new kitchen faucet in by code.
Right.
I've heard that not everyone follows that code, but it is in.
When is the school supposed to be rebuilt?
What's that?
When will?
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did have one.
That was a great point, Polly, I caught
Well,
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
spending lots of money and then next year, oh, it's gonna be rebuilt.
Yep.
On this portable thing that I was thinking about, our new fence and all that sort of thing, so where would the portables go and how would they get to service them?
The portable toilets.
I mean, if we had to put up a portable, it would have to be inside the fence.
Inside the fence.
So how would they service that portable?
The easiest point would be having them at the north end of the bus lane between the sidewalk and the new portables at that end.
And there's
Well,
access for them to come in and,
They have to have 50 feet, within 50 feet of drive to be able to drag your hose.
can they get through, is there a gate there or something?
Yeah.
The bus lane gate.
Does that improve anything for portables on the other end of the school?
No.
Those students currently either come to these bathrooms in here, or they go to the quad, which is the next building that way.
So then how do they get in here during the middle of the day?
They don't. They typically go to the quad in the middle of the day, because it has exterior bathrooms.
Yeah.
Because we have a secure campus.
Maybe have an operator at the next meeting for more discussion of this issue.
Yep. I'll let them know.
Any other question for Charlie on this? Doesn't seem to be a great answer or solution here.
Well, yeah, it's,
Not an easy answer or solution.
You have an old building that's not designed well, and, you know, there's lots of issues.
I mean, if we done just the basic, you got so many kids and so many per hour and how many visits and, you know, what would be the estimated architectural kind of use needed, you know, at that particular point.
It sounds like we have enough bathrooms, we just don't have
Yeah,
enough
I mean.
spots.
Yeah,
think-
I was gonna say
I think the
that.
actual use would be very, very low.
It's just a.
You could get Dan Ballard to apply the food service model, where they actually can count the number of meals prepped and served. And get it right down to the.
I don't know that we wanna get that intimate with the bathroom visits, but.
Yeah, true.
But it sounds like we have enough, they're just in the wrong spots. If Gold Bar is functioning, and I guess I would ask,
Well, I mean, Gold Bar, the four all-use bathrooms that we're talking about, I've got, 7 classrooms down that one wing, plus music and PE, and then 12 portables, all sharing the equivalent of 2 stalls for boys. So that's 2 toilets.
I opened up a can of worms here, didn't I?
well, the bathrooms up there are busy all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I mean,
okay.
it is a location thing. I mean, if all those classrooms could be using the bathrooms that are inside the classrooms down the other wing, you know,
Right.
that would decrease the overall bottlenecking of the bathrooms, but that's not the case.
But high use of the bathrooms is good.
Yeah, as long as everybody can get there and use them in a timely fashion, get back to
It
class.
prevents their uses for that, for other things.
Okay. I don't know that that's a problem in elementary, but I get where you're going.
Do we have in the budget to just have a bucket?
Yeah.
Home Depot?
Let me make a note that student
bear
reps
pile.
me. Okay.
Fire hydrant.
Yes. Thank you, Charlie. I guess you're also gonna update us on fencing.
Yeah, so there's been some discussion in and around the new fences, and do we have the gates locked all the time, security-wise and to protect some of our property that's inside the fence. So I wanted to have a discussion with the board to know which direction we should go. The reasons are different for the elementary versus the high school. The elementary, I mean, it has a playground and stuff and gets compliant on it, but, you know, if we leave the campus open, do we set it up where somebody can get inside while it's open? And then
Wait.
when we close it up for school, they're already in.
Right.
And that's even more so at the high school. But at the high school, you have all those athletic facilities within the confines of the fence.
Yeah.
And so then you reduce the free access to those. And, you know, one thing we could use is the facilities use process for people to want to use it, can sign up to use it, and that way it's,
So as of right now, everything is locked all of the time?
right now it's not. We're waiting to find out.
So I would, there's a couple things. This one is locked during the day, correct?
This one is
And then they open
locked.
it right at the end of the day?
Mhm. But this one, they open the gates 30 minutes before school's out, and then you have all these adults
Parents.
coming in, and it's not regulated, so it's difficult.
Okay.
Where like at Gold Bar, they all wait outside. There's nobody, I mean, until the teachers take the kids out, there's not that. But that's, again, that campus was built well. I mean, it's-
I get it.
So as a general rule of thumb, I think, you know, the gate was put up to be locked during the day, in my opinion. The challenge at the high school is that if you go back to, you know, 25 years ago, when that facility, the sports complex was built and there was the interlocal agreement,
Yeah.
everybody
Yes,
contributed
yes.
that it would be available to people. And so we weren't as worried back then about some of the things that are happening today on school campuses. And so that's the other piece of this, and that's where the facilities use. But I think we need to engage some of those folks, at least in a discussion, to know, you know, kind of what everybody's thinking. Because if we're gonna put up a fence and then just have them all wide open, what's the
Right.
purpose?
I think all of the people that would want to use it, there needs to be a meeting with them so that those discussions can come out.
The other thing, 25 years ago, we didn't have the dollar of investment into those facilities that we do now as well. I mean, so, and then what, you know, everybody's sue happy, so you have liability risks by leaving it open too, you know, so.
I do.
I'm indifferent. I mean, I've run youth sports and done all kinds of stupid
Well,
sports
I'm on the
stuff
fence
out
on it.
there.
It is, we do have more money invested, but that investment came from the taxpayers.
Right.
So it is the community school. How we administrate it though is, there has to be responsible administration where it's safe and that things don't get damaged. And I think it's gonna be different at each campus. I like your model. I think that from a safety standpoint, that's the best. And I think I think the people that wanna use the facilities, we need to have a meeting. I don't know that it requires the board to be there here, but I think we need to hear what the community,
I think there's actually a written agreement that we need to take a look at.
yeah.
And engage the city and some of the folks that were part of orchestrating all of that at that time. I know the tennis courts were, you know, one of the points, but, you know, they don't really get used right now, is that?
Well, the first thing is it has to be safe. That's the most important thing. Second is we have to protect our property so that they're there for the next kid. Given those things can occur, then I would push that the community gets used in as much as possible that keeps it safe and keeps it lasting a long time. I think that's the best outcome. Not everybody's gonna like how we limit them,
There's parks around, we got Osprey Park, there's tennis courts and
but
startup.
the gym on Main Street's open 24/7.
You know, so I mean, there's alternatives. I don't think anybody would wanna sacrifice safety for, I get to use a field.
Right, I would certainly, that's why I think as a group in a discussion, it'll be a different discussion than somebody typing something under, my name's GLP 79421. You don't know who that person is and they can say anything. or somebody that just had a bad day and said something they may not have said in a group, and they heard all the safety concerns.
So would support any direction you wanted to go. I just, we're trying to have something in writing for procedures.
Yeah.
And this guidance that you'll give us, or whatever, will direct
Well,
that.
obviously, lockdown is during the days.
Correct.
And if we can limit this, I mean, it's parents coming in, but it is a crazy time when the gates are open and, you know, dad and mom wanna see their kindergartner, I get it, and a first grader, but we have to balance that with safety, and they all want the same thing, they want the kids safe.
Is there, over here where it's not fenced, between the district and the portables, there's a big lawn, there's a couple of big trees. Is there enough area there that you could put parking in for staff? So there's less congestion out here, and then the parents can pick up out here, and the gate can be open so the parents don't have to come in? But the parents can be there.
So those trees,
The trees can stay, but.
well, the.
One's probably not gonna, I'm thinking.
There's been pieces falling off of them, so, we're gonna have an arborist take a look at them again. It's been. what,
Years.
Yeah, 8 years maybe ago that we did that.
Last
So-
big wind, we lost a huge chunk, and
Yeah, I mean, when the chunk is that big and it falls on somebody, it's,
But there's a lot of space out
there
there.
is.
To put parking in.
Yeah. Ultimately, this campus has more kids than it was built for.
Right.
And that's the that's the main problem. So, Band-Aids will be Band-Aids.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, more space is needed.
No, but then there would be it might be easier for parents to pick up all in one location, because there'd be more parking.
Mhm.
If the staff had parking over there.
Mhm.
that would help this, because this is also used now quite a bit to alleviate some of the problem in front, where you've got certain folks that are picking up and dropping off in the back. You're just trying to make use of everything.
Do we open up that gate back there half hour before school's out as well?
I will say, I like the idea of maybe having like student athletes or, you know, students who want to use the facilities at the high school. You know, we could sign a form as requesting a time slot to go and use a field. Cause I know sometimes me and my friends will go weekend through, play some baseball or just throw a little bit. I know there are guys who will practice running routes or girls who will do some soccer stuff. There are people who will use tennis
Well,
balls.
last weekend, there was all kinds of
Yeah.
older kids, adults, playing two-hand touch
Yeah.
football, turkey bowl.
Yeah.
I-
That's a nice
We used
field
to-
for.
We used to
Yeah,
do
I've
that
done
when we were
yeah.
still country, so.
Yeah.
So I do like the idea of finding ways to keeping those nice facilities open to the public.
Right, and
But
like
in a
I said, is
responsible way.
if we could do that through the facilities use process, it's just,
Yeah.
we would have to restructure our fee schedules to match whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. I don't think we have any.
Am I done?
answers. Yeah, I think you're done. We have two policies, first readings this evening. We have, the first policy is policy 2004. It's the accountability goals. Dan, I guess you're going to.
Yeah, so this is just an update. The background sheet kind of highlights the main changes. The changes in this policy reflect the school improvement framework, which replaced what used to be known as the Achievement Index, like the No Child Left Behind to the ESEA kind of differences, and those things are for school performance is what's represented in these accountability goals. And so we just essentially followed the way the law was written from the feds.
I think that's my comment to this whole thing, just to start off with. I think we have to go back and kind of reformat here. You're addressing the Elementary Secondary Education Act of 65, which is no
Every
longer.
Student Succeeds Act is what it's called.
Accountability goals paragraph, right? And we're meeting the requirements of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. At least that's what I read
Yeah,
here.
it's in the
So
first page.
we need to be talking about the ESSA in Washington State. So I kind of started to try to follow this thing, and of course with Obama and, you know, and the No Child Left Behind and everything, but what it comes down to, the law that we're supposed to be addressing in this is Washington State ESSA.
Correct.
And so all of this stuff about this 1965 Act and stuff is really irrelevant. Whatever it happens to be is irrelevant, and so.
And this addresses that in 1C, it goes into.
Well, yeah, but I mean, why start off there to begin with? I mean, it's.
Oh, the verbiage you wanted to
Right,
address.
the whole,
Okay.
the whole thing here, we just need to kind
Flip
of
that.
start over with, you know, what we're doing on ESSA and Washington State. And then I didn't have time to go into that. So, but apparently,
Did we write this? Was this recommended by WASDA? Was this,
This is recommended by WASDA.
okay, this is how they presented it to us.
I mean, we mark up their changes.
Right.
We do the markup, but
Right.
it's based on their recommendations.
Maybe forward us what if the base document from WASDA, so we can see, so that I can see what they were thinking, because they have a
Yeah,
lawyer.
All I need to do now, I didn't have time, but I need to just go to what we've put out in terms of the ESSA in Washington State. That's what we're obligated to follow.
And any follow-up WACs and RCWs that
Right,
reference
or
it and
attend to
change
that.
anything that was in
Right,
its intent.
Right.
So I looked at on this one, you get to the, is it the news? It's on page, remember what I said?
And I
found it
skipped
on-
something. Once we're done with this, we're gonna go back to the preschool update, because I
Oh,
bypassed it.
yeah, okay. Let me look at page 12, is where it talked about this.
We're losing our crowd.
Yeah, that's where it is. So if you look
Yeah.
up on the policy news, page 12, this is essential. And so the three important revisions reflect the school improvement framework, which replaced the former achievement index. Washington's school improvement framework is part of the state's Every Student Succeeds Act plan and identifies how schools can improve the education of all students. Specifically, these revisions reflect that school boards must adopt district-wide performance improvement goals each year and direct the schools to enroll students in grades 3 through 8 and/or high school to establish consistent goals.
Where was that at in this?
Page 12.
Well, I'm looking at our page, our clean copy.
Yeah. I'm
And
just
it-
trying to show you a source document.
Yeah, I mean, but all of our stuff here, like in ABC, in the middle of the page, it talks about the ESEA, in paragraph 3, ESEA, and all of that is not relevant.
Okay.
So the whole document is based on
That's
referring
just
the
a-
reader back to ESEA, which is not what we're.
That's just a verbiage thing that needs to be fixed, because in the update, in the magazine that you referenced, it addresses it as the Washington School Improvement Framework as part of every state student needs ESSA.
So ESEA in the policy that we have should be
ESEA,
ESEA.
yes.
ESSA.
One's
ESSA.
ESSA and one's ESEA, because they make this easy.
ESEA is not applicable.
Yeah, in what
It's
we have,
gone.
it's right, and it's ESSA.
Yes, correct.
Yes, yes, and they have that in their accountability goals update is essential, they have it right there, but in the document we have, it's referenced incorrectly. Am I interpreting what you're?
And I'm not, and I didn't have time to check to see what we actually, in other words, the graduation rate for all students required by, will be not less than 90%. Is that sentence still in the
The
Washington
Washington.
State ESSA?
Well, that looks like some fun reading for you.
Yes.
That's
Mike
all I'm
says
getting
yes.
at is.
Mike says,
So, well, I will.
You could have.
Are you guys having fun with us?
I'll just, yeah,
jumping
here,
this?
I'll give you, this is the visual. So these are the types, the different types of students, groups, and these are all of the things that they
Measure?
measure.
Yeah.
So, we tried to simplify it, some on the policy, and I think what we did, I would agree with you, the ESEA should be ESSA.
Yes.
ESSA.
If it's carries over, that's what I don't know.
Right, I think what the original, they're referring to the fact that it was originally done in 65.
Right.
And then everything was reauthorized under ESSA in 2016. So, and then the school improvement framework, the WISIF, which is what we're talking about, these are all the different categories. So that every one of these is a repeated group. It's just I just printed it because I said I needed to know all of them. So, there's, so the ones that are X's are just identification, that it's us. Oh, all the rest of them are all different categories that there's measurement on.
So, I think the answer to this is, for our next board meeting where we look at this, you can give us a repair, turn that language around so it's ESSA.
Yep.
And address, and maybe answer Ed's question of
Yep.
what's still applicable.
Yep.
Any other questions for first reading?
Let me just look here. Oh, I just, Mike, I might ask you,
Yep.
in this whole thing here, they're talking about ELA and math,
Correct,
no science.
correct.
There's no goals and stuff that we need to put in our accountability goals regarding science. That kind of makes, kind of.
Not by law, we could.
Well, science is only measured in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade, whereas ELA and math are done in 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Well, this is just,
Sixth,
this
seventh,
doesn't say,
6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th.
but we're not doing grade levels here in this particular document. This says accountability goals.
Right, and we have to follow what the state has said to, the state has to write to the feds to say, this is
Yeah.
how we're going to, everything that we're gonna measure.
Well, I mean, I don't care if we're not gonna measure science or we're not gonna be responsible for it, that's fine with me.
I think we're
I just
responsible.
wanna make sure that.
It doesn't need to be included to meet federal and state guidelines,
Very good.
Okay,
which is odd. There's such a big push on
Yeah.
that's why.
that area. You'd think that, maybe they think we already have our hands full after 2 years of COVID in this state. Maybe need to.
So,
Okay, well, that's all I'm.
Okay,
I'm done.
so we have a first reading that is going to be changed, and our next reading may be approvable, but we may have another first reading after we see a new document.
Oh, okay.
You know,
It's
so-
not gonna come to us as a second read.
No, well, no, we can do that. We'd like to see another first reading of this, and we don't have a timeline that's gonna kill us if we do it in our next meeting.
No, we're simply trying to work through all of the policy news changes as we're aware of them.
Okay.
And we're trying to get caught up on all the policy that goes on. And so we can put it on as first read. You guys have the option, if you're happy with what it says, to pass it that night. 'Cause
We do, and I generally don't like to do that, but we do.
This is a case where that might fit a little better.
If, in a repaired document with the right ESAA, ESEA, and confirm that everything is applicable, it sounds like WASDA had it right on their side, and maybe we just, computers and typo, who knows?
so I'll just tell you the student groups.
Mhm.
It's all the EL, English learners, Asian, Black, African Americans, Hispanic, Latino, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, or 2 or more races. Those are the different student groups. And then it's repeated for all of these that are the categories. ELA and math proficiency, so that's 1. Growth, proficiency, growth on grad rate, EL progress, regular attendance, 9th grade on track, dual credit, SQSS, which is quality, there's several different things that are lumped together to create the SQSS scores, and then there's a final, and then you get an overall tier. So there are so many different ways you can look at this data, and so we do pretty good if our 2 schools, based on the 2019 run of this, because we don't have enough data to do the rest because of the years we didn't test and the fall testing of the 2021 testing, we didn't have a 20 score. So we're looking at 2019 and gold bar for EL progress. The middle school identified for school improvement for 2 or more races, special ed, and EL progress, so 3 or more. So those are the only flags in this entire document that kicked out for us here in Sultan.
I think we're on two different tables here.
Yeah.
You're doing procedure.
Yeah.
And I think what Ed is saying, if I may paraphrase, is we want to make certain that the language in the document reflects what Washington requires. And if there's an overlap that the feds require, it's all in that document.
Okay.
That's, and
We got it.
giving us the background of what it covers is even more confusing, but
Okay.
you got a lot of work there. It's not confusing, it's just a lot of things to measure. I skipped, so we're going to not approve a first reading, we'll approve a first reading next time and possibly approve the policy if no one had any objections to that reading at that time. Preschool update, Dan, I bypassed that inadvertently.
Yeah, let me get to our spot here. Thank you. So, I can't find the link here, it's on the agenda.
I think the deal on that
Oh,
was
here it
you were
is.
gonna have community meetings or meet with.
No, we had mentioned that that would be a possibility. The main thing I took away from our last meeting was,
See if we can.
see if we can fund this.
Yeah.
That was the main thing,
Mm.
and so that's really what I focused on. And so when you look at a couple of different funding sources that have been talked about pretty extensively tonight, Title I, which is a federal fund, you can. LAP, you cannot. Though, because both elementary schools are designated as school-wide, it's a process that allows you to mix and match different funding sources. There are some things that you can do. I had a really tough time getting any return phone calls, because I was doing it the week leading up to
Thanksgiving.
and I got somebody finally called me back, and we chatted for a while, but she only had information on part of the program. She gave me a name that I still have to track down.
So you're still working?
Still working on it.
So, but when you say, you know, we can use this particular fund model here, but we also have to look at how much money do we need and how much money is available. In other
And what
words-
would we have to charge for it to
Right,
make
I mean,
sense?
Yeah. And I didn't really, I mean, if you think of a 30-student preschool here, a 15-student preschool at Gold Bar, which to me makes sense. Then you would figure out what's it cost for a halftime teacher, because this would be a 3-hour-a-day program at Gold Bar, and a morning session here and an afternoon session. 3 parts to that. What do you spend out of those grant funds that you can? What's the tuition? Okay, and then what other funding do you need to make it all work?
Right.
And the idea is to get us as close to break even as you can. And I think that the tuition we had there, based on some of what I've seen, is extremely low.
That's what, I think that was
Very low.
consensus, especially after I heard that she paid that
Yeah.
a few years ago.
And so we will, and I haven't even engaged Dan in this part of the discussion yet. We will have something together that's a little more succinct on the funding and what it might cost to do this by our December meeting. Because if we're gonna do it, we wanna move in January, February.
Well,
at the
that's,
latest.
that we heard that. Okay. Now I'll get us back on track. First reading policy 3224, student dress.
This did not come as a result of any policy change at legal. It came, I think you know, Paul and I worked on this, and we sent it out to the schools. Some of it was some inconsistent applications of the language in different schools, and then, you know, because of our growth, let me open this up, the name of the device. Kirkon.
Yeah.
You guys
I've heard about this being a,
it can be a problem, and so we want to just be on the front end of dealing with that before it becomes a problem.
right,
And what we do is we just write it so that we don't have a problem with any kind of a kebab.
Well,
But-
Paul's actually dealt with this issue, and there is
Yeah.
there's a substitute that can be used that's not a knife.
And it saves their religious faith. And
Yeah, it's a necklace that they can wear that has it on it. And we used it all the time up in Ferndale, and when I first dealt with it in Auburn, same thing. They sell them just over the border, but you can get them online now.
So it's safe and it meets their
And
religious.
it does.
Well, I would rather stay out of any kind of language about a particular kind of religious artifact. or-
I think in the way we wrote it as such as, it wasn't.
Well, I just leave that out. I do have.
Well, how would you,
I do have some editorial stuff here, but maybe I should work with you then. Because there's some stuff here that we could just totally delete. The whole bottom paragraph almost is completely deletable. And that way, you're not trying to address a particular thing, and next month we have a different kind of thing come along. We just say we're not gonna have stuff that will interfere with the education, leave it to our discretion kind of thing, language.
you wanted
But
to
I-
be
I-
okay with removing gang-related apparel?
So, on the bottom paragraph, for
Yeah,
example,
that's
I
the-
would say the superintendent will establish procedures providing guidance to students, parents, and staff regarding appropriate student dress. And I'll get back to that, in our school while engaging in or while engaging in extracurricular activities, period. Delete the rest of that.
I don't know if I agree with that.
That way-
And I don't know enough about gang activity, but
Well, yeah, but I mean, you've already said the superintendent will establish procedures providing guidance, period.
so you want it to be in the procedure, not in the policy?
Yeah, well, yeah, you could put it in the procedure. But the other thing that I got on here too is, of course, this whole thing is aimed at student dress. And then you got the first couple of ABCs, and then.
Well, we have a student here too, I'd be
Yeah.
curious what he thinks
Right.
of that.
But then-
I don't have a copy of that, actually.
Well, this is just
We'll get you.
kind of organizational kind of language here. But it's actually under the paragraph that says ABC, for the purpose of this policy, a material and substantial disruption of the educational process may be found to exist when a student's conduct is inconsistent with any part of the educational conduct. Where did that come from? This is student dress. And so you're gonna have to put in that sentence there, when a student's dress and/or conduct, or something like that. But this is a student dress policy, not a student conduct policy.
And I think that was in the original.
And we didn't edit all of this.
Didn't edit
We
that.
just added a few things. And you can, I
Yeah.
think you can see in the markup what
Well,
was there.
Yeah.
why
Well,
don't,
we can work on it,
Paul,
yeah.
why don't I just give you what I think, and then you can throw it in the trash bin or whatever. This comes from you, is that it?
Well, Dan and I and the principals, we got input for all
Okay.
of it.
From meeting with the principals, and particularly between the middle school and high school, there's some inconsistent application. They're both working hard at it, but we wanted to make it consistent.
It's gonna be hard to convey my thoughts here tonight when we all wanna go home.
Well, make certain you get your notes to
Yeah.
him, and then
Yeah.
forward them to us what you're thinking. I want it to be simple, but I also don't want somebody to use a vague policy against us to allow them to do something and then claim that we didn't deal with them in a correct way and impeded on their rights to do something. There's some real legal lines you have to be careful with there when you're stepping on people's religious beliefs. And if it's in the procedure and it's an official document, I guess I'm okay, but I know that's probably one that's gonna come up in the coming years in our community.
And the only other thing I would say is I certainly understand that, you know, we have talked long about the way the policies come from WASDA sometimes. I would just say, on this particular one, it's only 2/3 of a page.
Right, thank
You
God.
know, it's not 10 pages of just stuff that you don't know what it even means, but I want to provide as much clarity for the schools on this issue as I can, because I'm not always aware of how and when this comes up, but it comes up.
Well, the ones that become ignited on the internet are when they have a vague policy and an administrator makes a call, and then there's video out there, and it looks like the administrator chose to select that student out of others that could have been guilty of the same thing but weren't called out, and then there's a lawsuit. Whereas if it says no gang in somewhere, well, we didn't throw you out because we don't like you, we threw you out because you were wearing a red bandana that said Crips on it, or we're Bloods. I don't want to offend any gang members, but whatever color red that gang, I think we do need to take a strong stand on those things so that they can't be.
Actually, I'm not suggesting to delete this particular area that says
Okay.
violence and gang, but I'm trying to leave it more.
Why don't you mark it up and then
Yeah,
send it
yeah,
to us?
yeah.
I don't think we're too far apart. You
No.
want to leave it where an intelligent individual can make a decision.
Well, where you're gonna say, well, yeah, my knife is not the kosher,
pan.
my knife's a kosher knife, and then we get into a whole nother long discussion, and then somebody comes from Japan and they have a samurai sword, and then we get another whole long discussion. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, anyway.
It's a fun
I
world we
want-
live in.
I want metal detectors, no knives or guns, period. Okay?
Well, and I think we can meet that because we can have a necklace that they can procure somewhere off-site. We're a proponent for those. Maybe we have them in the district office.
We can take a picture and they can clip it on their shirt and they can carry it.
And we'll get you, I think it would be good if our
Oh,
student
I got it.
representative, okay, good.
Yeah.
Had
Thank
the
you.
same stuff.
Sure.
Thank you. Especially on items like this, our goal isn't to make it where you can express yourself in
Yeah.
the school, it's to make certain that it's a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we don't have a deadline on this, so we'll see first reading after we get a subtle rewrite. And
We'll
Ed,
bring it
what-
back again for the. on the
Yeah, and Ed,
14th.
if you could forward to us what you sent to them, so we can also ponder it, so it's not new on us that night. Superintendent's report.
These all kind of fit together. They're related to the retreat. I attempted to call everybody, and I think I was successful in most cases, just to talk, see if you had any thoughts about things you wanted to color at the retreat. I put the strategic plan in there, and it's sort of what, you guys don't have to hang for this. This is, if you want to go, this is.
It's very informative.
It's exciting. You might miss it, but you've been here a long
I'll
time.
catch you.
Thanks, guys, have a good evening.
Thank you.
You have to stay, Dan, apparently. You have to stay, though.
He doesn't have to.
No, I know.
Is that, the strategic plan had the kind of bracketed the 4 goals.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the 4 goals, how much do they want to revisit those? And
I'd like to spend our time trying to address things that are headed at us in terms of, that we've already gone through, like masking and lockdowns and our opposition to, or our opinion towards vaccinations and not, all of this is being discussed right now. In fact, I saw it on the news tonight just before I came here. That they're actually talking about, well, if this sign is SDS or whatever it is, their lockdown shouldn't be out of sight. And so I would like to talk about how are we gonna do this again, because we already know the facts. We know the facts that lockdowns did not work and they were very harmful. So we should promise our community that maybe we're going to do something different if these things come at us again. That's what I'd like to spend some time on.
And I understand that. My concern is, we can write any policy, and with the scratch of a pen, the governor makes that policy null and void, because they override all of our policies and health issues. I don't disagree with you,
Okay,
but
well,
we,
that's what I'd like to spend my time on.
okay. I think we do need to go and talk about our vision goals. Because of that era, it changed some of the things we're gonna be looking
Well,
at.
we had finished our strategic plan. Gosh, weren't we out at Wallace Falls in
Yeah.
like February?
Yeah.
We're closed a month later.
Yeah.
And so this whole deal is sort of a COVID plan. Well, I think we can talk about that stuff, Ed, no problem. I will just tell you, I talked to one of the senators, I said, don't let that stuff happen. He told me he would.
I'd like to
so
be
it's
able
not
to
gonna
publish
happen.
something and say, the attitude of the board and this school system is that if we get into this thing again, masks are optional. Where if we get into this thing again and your kid's got a runny nose, keep him home, but our schools are gonna remain open.
I think you'd see a mutiny even from folks that try to follow the rules.
Well, what's
whether they
going on
like
in
it or
China
not.
right now is absolutely horrific. And,
Yeah, it's a mess.
So anyway, I'd like to be able to publish something that we can promise our community that this is our mindset.
Well, we've got 5 hours set aside, so I would say we can carve out some time for
Sure.
this. But I think we've got to, you'll notice I put accountability and goals there too, because it said in that first reading of that policy that part of what you're going to direct us to do is set some goals.
And I'm not
Bring those
poo-pooing
goals
what you
back.
said.
No, no,
I just
I-
think it's politically, I don't think it'll happen.
I don't.
I know you think it, I know.
I don't, it's like it's not gonna happen, and that's what, I don't want to be caught up short. I want the people of this community to know where we stand before we go down this road again.
To the point where they yank our funds, I'm with you.
Hey, absolutely.
I can't, you know, again, what do I know, but I just can't see us going back.
I don't.
I just.
I think there's too much pressure back from the school system.
Yeah, well, the damage is apparent, you know, I mean, I watched it with one of my own sons, you know.
We now know that that doesn't work.
Well, then it should be real easy then. If we know it can't happen, we can just say it's not gonna happen. We're
Well,
not gonna put it.
And this is recorded, short of them yanking our funds, I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah, yank my funds,
Well, we gotta, then we lose.
then we all go to Olympia. Okay, well, anyway.
I think we need to revisit our mission and our goals, because right after we set those up, the world changed.
And we have I've tried to carry some of this forward, but it's hard in the world we were in. It really is. And part of the challenge that everybody from, you know, our classroom teachers to our cooks, it was survival mode.
Right.
Just trying to survive, you know, it really was, let alone trying to meet these goals. And that's the hand we were dealt, and did the best we could with it. But I think we need to really talk about, you know, are these goals we want?
Right. And our strategic plan could change if our goals change.
Yeah.
To where our focus is now in recovering those lost years and getting as many students up to their grade level as we can.
Yes.
I think that has to be a good discussion point. I would like everybody in the next week to be thinking about this and reach back out today. I've been spending as much time as my brain wants to wrap around it, trying, you know, we don't want to waste 5 hours. We want to
No,
put 5 hours
I will
into
set up
coming
an
up.
agenda we build,
Yep.
and we have to adhere to it. And it's easy to get off track and, you know, be talking about this or talking about that, but, you know, I wanna have a very productive day.
And this needs to be big picture stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy to get wrapped up in, God, did you guys see the paint on the side of the building? It's like, that's send an email or something, but this is big picture stuff, so we're planning for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years.
I don't know if it's more about like security,
Yeah.
you know, that's a big thing.
It's,
You know,
things have
it-
changed in
it's
the
only
last
gonna-
2 years.
If we don't do something, it'll only get worse, if, you know, we can.
Have any
Do
of you
stuff
guys
now.
went to to enter during the day, middle school, high school Gold Bar? Okay, so Dave Moon, Dave and his team, Charlie and his team did a phenomenal job of developing, and it's kind of a headache for people, but they have to ring a buzzer to
It does the
enter.
job.
It does what you need it to do, you know who's there, and you can keep the door locked if you need to, and otherwise, you know, you don't always know who's coming and going.
Right.
And they did you know, for, you know, the amount we ended up paying for that versus what commercially it would cost. Just, you know, need to thank them, you know.
Over and over, they find ways to save money, but you're right, security is one of those issues, and how we address how we make our students know that we're working on making the buildings safe. You know, you hear in the news, I just listened to a report this week about students in Seattle feeling very unsafe in the schools. And in this environment, I can certainly understand why going to school, you would have that feeling that I didn't have going to school, and probably none of us had that.
Oh, when at Watsonville High School.
maybe
in the
where you
ninth
went to high
grade,
school.
We go in the locker room for gym and everybody has to suit up. The knives would be falling and clanking in the lockers.
Okay, Ed went to a different high school than I did. But,
Boy, it was disarm in order to suit
Well,
up.
it wasn't too many years ago, when I was superintendent in Republic, that, you know, people would drive up to the school and they would have the gun in their rack. And nobody
I
said
brought
word.
I brought a shotgun into my high school for speech class and demonstrated how to disassemble it and clean it and properly use it.
We had, in Donaldson's class, we had a trap shooting after school, you bring your shotgun in and he put it in his safe in his classroom.
In New York City, in the 50s, the kids actually carried their .22s on the buses, city buses, to get to school. And when they checked into school, they would, because they had a shooting range after school.
Oh, they were like
And they
target-
bring their guns to school on the city buses and deposit them with the gym teacher during the school day. Then they go to target shooting down in the basement, whatever it was, their .22s, and then they take them home at night.
It's a different world now.
Yeah.
We used to have the hunter safety thing at the
Yeah.
school.
So,
Anyway,
It is, and Casey, I hope if that comes up in discussions, that you share that it's one of the most weighty things on our mind, trying to make certain your schools are safe.
Yeah, I remember back in, I believe I was in 7th grade, there was a kid who had brought, I don't think it was an actual firearm, but there was still that fear, so I remember for years afterwards, I had that fear.
Yeah.
So it is a very real thing that
Is that here?
students.
Yeah, it was in the middle school. I
Yeah, it was
remember
at the
that.
middle school.
A young man had a
It was, I believe it was. an
airsoft gun. but
Yeah.
made it
Oh,
look
that's
like-
right, yeah, I heard about that.
It was that whole thing. But yeah, so there's some real fear that I had and some of my like peers had for a while.
Yeah. There's no great answers. The answer, I think, is within you guys, more
Yeah.
than anything, because anything seems bad, you gotta tell somebody.
Yeah, if there are times where we are like discussing safety and that kind of protocols like during a board meeting, if you can give me the opportunity to get the word out, I'm sure I could get some.
It's really, it shouldn't be on the onus of the students, but so many of these tragedies, there were students who knew
Yeah.
and were scared. Man, you got
A good thing to do is maybe teach students what to look for, because a lot of the times is you hear about it and they're like, well, I thought something was wrong, but I wasn't sure because they don't know what they're looking for.
right.
So
And
I
if
feel
they
like
were-
that
Yeah.
the students almost need to be trained as to be sort of like,
And it's more important to tattle
yeah,
than to protect a friendship.
yeah,
Because
that is also an issue.
Your friend is, the friend that might do something terrible up until that moment when they do that act is just a troubled kid. When they commit that act,
Yeah.
they're a felon and they're like, and
That's why
others
we
are.
need the metal detector.
I don't know how many metal detectors, my worry is not that they wouldn't work, but we'd have to even reinforce our buildings even more. Cause
The what?
the metal detector will stop them from coming through, but I can
Right.
toss a gun over the fence tonight and come back and pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah, there are
That's fine,
definitely-
but at least you're stopping that backpack coming in with a knife or an axe, or, you know, the latest thing is axe throwing, by the way.
It's
You see that?
there's bars with axe throwing in it,
I
are they
mean,
using it as a
somebody
weapon?
wanted
in-
that.
Yeah, I have not read
And
that.
then give an axe, that's a great idea.
No, you,
The
there's
guards
a-
are bad enough.
another kid that carried axes to school, I don't know.
All right.
Okay,
So I will put together just an outline of an agenda that kind of covers this and what I've heard tonight, and then you guys can help me fill it in.
And where are we meeting at?
I said that the district office in the conference room, there's
Okay.
plenty of room for us in there.
Is the heat working?
Yes, yeah, it's not working right now, so in here, I don't think.
Yeah, I was-
Or he turned it off on his way out.
Right, it
One of the
seems like
two.
it's a little chilly. in
It's a
here.
little
Yeah.
chilly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be a little cooler.
Yeah, you used to working in a cool environment.
Yep.
Okay, anything else that you have, Dan? It looks like that's it. We don't have executive session items this evening?
No.
Okay. That being the case, thank you everyone for
So
listening.
moved.
I have a motion to adjourn from Quick Ed over there. Fast Eddie, that'll be your new nickname. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What if that's the one I opposed? The-
Yeah,
the
we have to stay in
adjournment.
session. You gotta get two more to vote with you.
Yeah, alright. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thanks. Congratulations on your role in the musical.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
He will be Gaston. Yeah.
Who doesn't love that?
We have things
Do
to
we have
sign,
some-
guys.
Oh, is that right?